What is going on, y'all? This is Pay Me in Dividends, and today is December 10th. There's a couple things I want to talk about today, but before we get into it, let's just take a look at my portfolio very quickly. So today, as of December 10th, I'm sitting at $86,150. By the way, I used a dividend tracker. This is a free tracker. There's also a paid version as well. But yeah, you should try it out. It does fluctuate your monthly payments. Like let's go over here and look at the payout calendar, and you can see there's a monthly average, right? And if you scroll down, you can see how much each stock is going to pay you on a monthly basis. Now keep in mind, the way this is calculated is based on the previous month's payment. And as we know, a lot of these covered call ETFs can fluctuate in distributions from a month-to-month basis, and so you're basically getting the information from the prior month. But it's still a good tool. You're still able to get a ballpark range of how much dividends you're going to make on a monthly basis, and it's just an easy way to track your portfolio without actually having to log into your brokerage each time. So this is the dividend tracker. Again, you could try it out if you want to, but yeah. So I'm sitting at $86,150. My holdings have not changed since the last video. I still have 1,000 shares of AIPI and 1,000 shares of MSTY. Now let's get into the video. This is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about weekly paying dividend income ETFs. Now, I'm going to cover these four because these are probably the biggest names when it comes to weekly paying dividend stocks. Now, Defiance, if you're familiar with Defiance, QQQY, WTE, and I believe IWMY, they also pay weekly as well. The only thing, I'm not a big fan of those funds in particular. I am a fan of SPYT, SPYT, from Defiance, which we've talked about in previous videos, but I'm not a big fan of their weekly paying funds. Maybe sometime in the future, if they continue to prove themselves, I'll put them on my watch list. But as of now, when it comes to weekly paying covered call ETFs or just high yield funds, these are probably the top four names right now in the market. So we're going to look over these. Now, what I like about these, first of all, is they pay every single week, right? Every single Friday, they pay out a distribution. Now, the dividend does fluctuate, of course, because it's based off of the option premium that they are able to capture and extract and then pay you out. So it does fluctuate. But the good thing about these funds is you get paid weekly, which means you're able to reinvest at a much quicker rate. Because traditionally, a lot of stocks would pay out dividends on a quarterly basis. That's 4 times a year. Sometimes on an annually basis, only once a year. And then a lot of these funds have transitioned to paying out monthly, which is really good for compounding purposes. You're able to compound your dividends at a much faster rate. So now with these weekly paying ETFs, you're able to compound at even a quicker rate. And once you accumulate enough shares, you've pretty much created a weekly paycheck for yourself outside of your 9-to-5 job. So I do not currently hold any of these. As you know, I just have AIPI and MSTY. But going into the new year, sometime in January, I look to add one of these ETFs. And so today we're just going to go over these 4 ETFs, check them out, see how they're doing. We're also going to compare them to each other and see which one has performed the best since their existence. And so before we compare these 4 ETFs, let's just look at their charts real quick, right? And let's just be real about it. We're just going to go to Max and see how they've performed since inception. Now keep in mind, these are not growth funds. They are not meant to grow like big tech stocks, like an S&P 500 ETF or NASDAQ ETF. They are meant to capture premium from option contracts, and then they distribute those premiums in the form of a dividend. So as you can see, when you zoom all the way out, you can see that it's actually down from inception, right? The share price is currently at $18.38 as of today, December 10th. But at inception, it was about $20 a share. So it's actually down almost $2 a share since inception. However, it has made up in total return a positive return because of the dividend payments. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at YMAX first and just look at their distributions. And so now we can see that they pay a 67% dividend yield, but they actually were paying monthly when this fund first came out, and then it transitioned to weekly. So as you can see, from February of early this year, they started off paying monthly, right? February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and then it looks like late September is when they transition to weekly. As you can see, September 20th, September 27th, October 4th, so on and so forth. And so now they actually pay out every single Friday. And when we look at the distribution per share, we can see that it fluctuates, right? Because again, like I explained earlier, they're performing options, synthetic options, where they don't actually hold the stock. They just perform synthetic options. They extract the premium, and then they pay you out a dividend based on the premium that they were able to extract from the option strategy. So just keep in mind, this is an income investment. This is not a long-term growth investment, but if you accumulate enough shares, it can be quite sizable income and cash flow that you can add to your portfolio. So this is YMAX. Again, as of now, they are paying a 67% dividend. This number is always going to fluctuate. It may shoot up to 80%. It may drop down to 20% and back to 50%. It's going to fluctuate, but one thing we know for certain is that they're going to pay weekly every Friday. And so you're able to take that money and use it or reinvest it back into your portfolio, buy more shares of YMAX, or open up new positions in other stocks and accumulate shares in those other stocks. So that one is YMAX. Now we're going to take a look at YMAG, right? So all time, let me go back to YMAX. So all time YMAX was down 8%, right? About $2 since its starting share price at about $20. If we look at YMAX, it's only down 1% in capital appreciation, right? It's only down 1%. So it looks like less than $1 it's down, but they also pay weekly. And this is another fund from the same ETF manager, YMAX. And this one is currently paying a 72% dividend. They also started off paying a monthly dividend, and they transitioned along with YMAX to weekly payments. So this is the second one on my list that I am considering on adding, both from YMAX. We have YMAX and we have YMAG, right? YMAG is the Magnificent Seven. So if we look at their holdings, we can see that they have big tech, right? Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, Nvidia. If we look at YMAX, this one is a lot more diversified, whereas YMAG is very top heavy with tech. It's the Magnificent Seven, and this one has a bit more holdings, as we can see: SMCI, YMAX AI Option Income Strategy, Snow, Palantir, Moderna, Tesla, PayPal, Meta, Netflix, YMAX Innovation Option Income Strategy ETF. So this one has a few more holdings. And so between these two, I'm not sure yet. I'm really not sure yet. We're going to compare them here in a moment. But let's move on to Roundhill QDTE. Now this one, as we can see, since inception is down 5%, right? It started off, it came out earlier this year in March, and it was about $45 when it first came out, and now it's at $43. So it's down over $2 a share, but they also pay out on a weekly basis. So if we go to their website, we can see that it has a 26% dividend yield. And if we just look at the overview very quickly, QDTE is the first ETF to utilize 0 days to expiry, 0 DTE options on an innovation index. QDTE seeks to provide overnight exposure to the Innovation 100 index and generate income each morning by selling out of the money 0 day to expiration calls on the index. QDTE is an actively managed ETF, and it is currently paying 26% dividend yield. Now again, this is another one where the payments are going to fluctuate, and let's look at the dividend history here. So if we look at QDTE, we can see that they've paid weekly on a consistent basis since April, right? And so they've paid weekly, and it's been pretty consistent. So QDTE is number 3 on my list, and I don't want to get too much into these, to be honest. I would encourage you to do your own research before you invest into these funds, but this is just a general idea of the type of different funds that you can add to your portfolio in order to have a bit more diversification and to add more frequent cash flow coming into your portfolio so that you can compound and maximize your cash flow on a weekly and monthly basis. So the next one we're going to look at is from Roundhill as well, and this is XDTE. Now, out of these 4, this may be my favorite. Now, keep in mind, these are all very new funds, right? They've all came out this year. But since inception of March of earlier this year, it's actually up, right? When we looked at the other 3 funds, they were all down a few percent since the existence of these funds. This one is actually up about 2% since the inception of this fund, and all the while it's been paying out dividends, right? So it's been very consistent. Let's go back up here, So they have an 18% dividend yield, right? And they're up since inception, which again, I think is probably my favorite one on the list out of these 4, but we're going to compare all 4 of them shortly here. So as you can see, since March, they've paid out weekly consistently. You can see this chart every 7 days, right? March 28th, May 5th, April 5th, April 12th, April 19th, so on and so forth. And so again, these dividend payouts, these distribution amounts are going to fluctuate because it's all based on the premium that they're able to extract from their contracts on a monthly basis. And they've been paying out this dividend on a consistent weekly basis. So this is XDTE. Now the next thing I want to do is I actually want to compare all these, right? So the first 2 we're going to compare the YMAX funds to each other, right? YMAX versus YMAG. So if we look at total return as of January of 2024, with dividends reinvested, this is assuming that you made a $10,000 investment, but this amount can be any number. We're really just kind of looking at the chart and how much it's gained in percentages. So as we can see, YMAG, which is the Magnificent 7 fund from YMAX has actually outperformed YMAX. Not by too much, but if we look at total return with dividends, they are actually beating them by 7%. So I guess it is a lot. Annualized gains, 44%. And so you can see right at the starting share price for YMAX was $20, and it actually went down. The starting share price for YMAG was $19.89, and according to this chart, it looks like it actually went up 1 cent. So yeah, total return with dividends reinvested, YMAG is up, and of course without dividends reinvested, they are also up as well. So this top chart is basically just assuming that you're reinvesting and adding more shares to the to the position as you receive the dividends. And this chart down here is assuming that you are just collecting the dividends. And so that is the difference between these two charts. But nonetheless, YMAG is up on YMAX. So since YMAG is the winner between these two, I'm going to compare YMAG to XDTE, which is the one that I have my eye on. And so if we look at this chart, oh wow, okay, so this is the first time I'm comparing these two. So YMAG is actually up total return compared to XDTE. Now, you have to kind of take these websites with a grain of salt, because if you remember just a couple seconds ago when I compared YMAG to YMAX, YMAG's starting price, according to this chart, was at $19.89. Now it's showing that it was $20.65. So I guess it's just according to the earliest date, either fund, most recent fund that's the starting date that it's going back to, because they have to have some type of history in order to display a chart. So we'll take this, with a grain of salt, but YMAG is up on this. So maybe I should reconsider, right? Maybe I should look into actually adding YMAG as my weekly position after the new year. But let's do one more comparison. Let's do YMAG, or you know what? Let's do XDTE versus QDTE and see what we get here. Okay, so these are very, very, very close. So total return 20% for XDTE with dividends reinvested, and QDTE 19%. So only off by about 1%. Now without dividends reinvested, it's about 2% total return difference, but still very close. And you can see the visual on the chart. These have performed very, very similar to each other. So let's look at that one more time. And so XDTE is outperforming QDTE, which we already put up against YMAG, right? And so YMAG outperformed XDTE. And so it looks like YMAG may be the winner. However, I am going to keep all four of these on my watch list for now. I am going to wait for the new year to come around. I'm also going to wait for the inauguration to happen, because we saw when the election took place, Bitcoin went up like crazy. A lot of different stocks began to rally. And so when major events happen in the news, the market tends to behave a certain way. Now, we don't know if that means it's going to behave in a positive way or a negative way, but things usually happen in the market. And so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue collecting my dividends for AIPI and MSTY for the month of December and January, and most likely late January, early February is when I will open up a new position in my portfolio, and it will be a weekly one of these weekly ETFs, because I do want to increase the speed and the velocity of the compounding effect in my portfolio. So that's all I want to talk about today, y'all. Again, these are weekly paying dividends. Again, keep in mind that these dividends do fluctuate because this is all based on option premium. These are not funds that hold on to stocks long term and you can just sit on them long term for 20, 30, 40 years like a Vanguard ETF or Fidelity index fund. These are solely income investments. So I do look on adding one of these within the next couple months. And I appreciate you guys checking me out again. The last video I posted, I was at, I believe, 275 subscribers, and now I'm at 307. So again, I just want to thank you guys. I appreciate you guys checking out my channel. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if there are any other ETFs or income related stocks that you want me to cover. And I will check y'all out in the next video.